Wildfires. They're one of the most powerful forces on the planet, turning a tiny spark into a raging inferno that can completely reshape a landscape. But have you ever stopped to think about where all that power actually comes from? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today. The complete anatomy of a wildfire, from how it starts to how it spreads across the globe. So let's just jump right in with the big one, right? How do these massive, destructive fires we see all over the news actually get started? Every single one of them has an origin story. And you'll see, the answer isn't always as simple as you might think. You can pretty much trace the origin of almost every wildfire back to one of two main culprits. On one hand, you've got the natural world just doing its thing. And on the other, well, you've got us. Let's take a look at what that really means. So on the natural side, you have these incredible forces like a lightning strike hitting a dry tree or even a volcanic eruption. But just look at the list of human causes. It's longer and honestly a lot more common. In a place like the United States, for instance, humans are responsible for something like 85% of all wildland fires. From deliberate arson to something as simple as a carelessly tossed cigarette, our footprint is huge. And when you dig into it, the list just keeps going. You've got widespread agricultural practices like slash and burn or clearing land for cattle. But then there are some really unexpected ones, like hot fragments from rifle bullets sparking a blaze. And get this, there's even a historical legacy at play. During the Vietnam War, so much land was cleared that it created conditions for recurring grass fires that to this day still happen every single year. Okay, so now we know what can start a fire, but how does that one little spark grow into a moving wall of flames? It's all about what the fire can eat and how it can literally climb its way from the ground all the way up into the treetops. A lot of times it starts right here with what's called a ground fire. This is a super slow, smoldering burn that's happening underground. Think about it. It's burning through things like peat and old tree roots. You might not even see flames, just smoke seeping out of the earth. And these things can creep along for weeks, sometimes even months, like the infamous peat fires in Indonesia. Next, you've got the surface fire. This is probably what most of us picture when we think of a forest fire. It's the flames burning through all the stuff on the forest floor. Dead leaves, grass, little shrubs. And even though its temperature is relatively low, give it a little wind or a steep hill, and it can really start to move fast. Now this is where things get really, really dangerous. The surface fire finds what firefighters call a ladder. This isn't a real ladder, of course. It's things like smaller trees, vines, or maybe a fallen log that's leaning against a bigger tree. These are ladder fuels, and they let the flames climb step by step from the ground right up into the main canopy. This is the moment a manageable fire can turn into a total disaster. And that brings us to the crown fire. This is the inferno. The fire is no longer on the ground, it's racing through the treetops. Its speed and its heat are just terrifying. And it's all driven by a perfect storm of factors. How dense the trees are, the weather, and just how dry everything is. This is the kind of fire that is almost impossible to control. So we have the how a fire spreads, but what about the where? Because these same principles, well, they play out very differently depending on where you are in the world. The main reason fires start isn't the same everywhere you go. It really is a story of geography. So you take a place like Canada or Northwest China, with these vast, remote forests, lightning is the big trigger there. But then you go to parts of Africa, Southeast Asia, or Central America, and it's human activity, mostly for farming, that becomes the #1 cause. And then you've got places like the US and Australia, which are kind of at a crossroads, dealing with a dangerous mix of both. And then you have this, one of the wildest phenomena out there, coal seam fires. In places like Centralia, Pennsylvania, or a spot called Burning Mountain in Australia, there are fires burning in coal deposits deep underground. And, I mean, these fires were ignited decades, sometimes even centuries ago, and they are still burning today. It's unbelievable. And just when you think you've heard it all, for one of the most incredible fire starters on the planet, you have to look up at the sky. It's been documented in northern Australia that some birds of prey, like kites and falcons, will actually pick up burning sticks, fly them over to a new patch of dry grass, and drop them to start a new fire. Why? To flush out lizards and other prey. It is a stunning example of nature's ingenuity. Now, there's no way to talk about modern wildfires without talking about the single biggest factor that is changing the entire game, our climate. So here's the bottom line. A A warming planet is creating the absolute perfect conditions for more and bigger fires. We're seeing more intense heat waves, longer and deeper droughts, and stronger weather patterns like El Niño. All of this just sucks the moisture out of the landscape, basically turning entire forests into a tinderbox, just waiting for a spark. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at the data. This chart makes the impact crystal clear. Since the mid-1980s, rising temperatures in the western U.S. have directly led to a much longer and more severe wildfire season. What that means is the time of year when we have to worry about major fires is getting longer and longer. So the conclusion from all the research is really unavoidable. It's simple. A warmer world is a world with more fire. The science on this is absolutely clear. The two are directly and powerfully linked. And that just leaves us with a huge question to think about. We know how these fires start, we know how they spread, and now we know how our changing climate is pouring fuel on the flames. So the real challenge for all of us is to ask, what will the wildfire disasters of the future look like in a world that is, quite literally, getting hotter by the year?